Valentine's Day. The one day of the year that felt like a spotlight. And somehow, it always found me. My name is Zara Thompson. 29. Black. Educated. Self-made. And, according to my ex, hard to love. I used to laugh when people called me strong. Strong wasn't a compliment. It was what people said when they didn't plan on helping you carry anything. 3 years ago, I thought I had everything figured out. Marcus Reed was charming, ambitious, smooth with his words. He talked about future plans like they were already built. Marriage, travel, business, ventures. He liked telling people I was different. He liked telling me I was intense. But what he really meant was I wouldn't shrink for him. And men like Marcus? They don't like women who take up space. When he cheated, he didn't even look guilty. He looked justified. You don't know how to let a man lead, Zara, he said that night. You make everything a competition. I remember standing there in my own apartment, bills paid by me, career built by me, heartbreaking because of him. That was the last Valentine's Day I spent crying over a man. Or, at least, that's what I told myself. The group chat. Valentine's weekend getaway. The message from Keisha popped up on my phone 2 weeks ago. Pictures of a luxury mountain lodge. Fireplaces. Snow. Champagne flutes. Hashtags like #SoftLife and #HealingEra. Keisha had been my best friend since college. Loud, funny, dramatic, but loyal. Or so I thought. It's girls only, she promised when she called me. No men. No drama. Just us and good vibes. I hesitated. Valentine's trips were for couples. For matching pajamas. For staged Instagram kisses. Not for women trying to outrun their past. But something in me was tired of hiding at home every February 14th like heartbreak was a disease. So, I agreed. Big mistake. Arrival. The resort was breathtaking. Tall glass windows framed snow-covered mountains. Twinkling lights wrapped around wooden beams. A massive stone fireplace roared in the center of the lobby. It looked like a scene stolen from a romance movie. For a split second, I allowed myself to feel hopeful. Maybe this would be different. Maybe this Valentine's Day would be about friendship, laughter, hot chocolate, and healing. Keisha rushed toward the reception desk while I stood back, taking it all in. And that's when I heard it. That voice. Low. Familiar. Confident. You always hated the cold, didn't you? My entire body went rigid. I turned slowly. And there he was. Marcus Reed. Wearing that same smug half-smile like the world had never denied him anything. Time didn't just pause. It mocked me. He looked good. Of course he did. Crisp jacket. Trimmed beard. The kind of polish men apply when they're trying to prove something. But I saw past it. I saw the nights I questioned my worth. I saw the therapy sessions. I saw the self-doubt he planted like seeds. You've got to be kidding me, I whispered. Keisha froze behind him. Oh, you guys saw each other already? Already? My chest tightened. You invited him? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. She started rambling. Okay, listen, I just thought, closure. Growth. We're adults now. Adults? No adult invites her best friend's ex to a romantic weekend getaway without warning her. Marcus stepped closer, hands in his coat pockets like he owned the space between us. Relax, he said lightly. I wasn't sure you'd even come. Didn't think you still did the Valentine's thing. I swallowed hard. He was enjoying this. You thought wrong, I replied. Truth was, I hadn't prepared for this. I hadn't armored myself. I came here in soft sweaters and neutral makeup, not emotional battle gear. Around us, couples checked in, laughed, kissed, held hands. And suddenly I felt exposed. Like I was the only woman in the room who had ever been left. Marcus leaned in slightly. So, still single? There it was. The question men ask when they want to measure your market value. I tilted my head. Are you still insecure? I shot back. His jaw flexed. Keisha shifted awkwardly, clearly realizing she had detonated something she couldn't control. Let's just go inside, she muttered. But I stayed there for a moment. because something inside me had started to tremble. Not because I wanted him back, but because heartbreak has memory, and memory has teeth. The smile I wore like armor. By the time we settled into the lodge, I had fixed my expression. Chin up, shoulders back, smile controlled. If Marcus wanted a show, I would give him one. But beneath the surface, my heart was racing. Because he didn't know something. Something no one here knew. For 6 months, my life had quietly changed. 6 months ago, in a bookstore cafe in Atlanta, I corrected a stranger's pronunciation of Zora Neale Hurston. He laughed instead of getting offended. He bought me coffee instead of arguing. And he looked at me like I was fascinating, not threatening. His name was Jay Hyan.
And my ex
was about to find out that the woman he thought no man could handle was already being loved correctly. I slipped my hand into my coat pocket and felt my phone. For a moment I debated. Then I typed 3 words. I might need you. I didn't expect him to come. I just needed to remind myself that somewhere in this world there was a man who didn't see me as too much, but as exactly enough. And I had a feeling Valentine's Day wasn't finished with me yet. Some relationships start loudly. Fireworks, social media announcements, couple photos with matching captions. Mine started with a correction, and a stare that lasted a second too long. 6 months earlier, it was raining in Atlanta that afternoon, the kind of quiet rain that makes bookstores feel sacred. I was curled into a leather chair at a small independent shop, flipping through essays by Zora Neale Hurston when I heard it. A voice behind me.
Deep, smooth.
Careful with English, but not unsure. Zora Neale Hurston. I winced. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was the audacity. Maybe it was the exhaustion of men constantly mispronouncing brilliance. I turned in my seat. It's Zora. Like aura, with a Z. And Hurston, not Hurston.
He blinked at me.
Not offended. Impressed. Oh, he said slowly. Then I stand corrected. That was the first time I noticed his eyes.
Sharp.
Observant. Intentional. He wasn't just reading the book.
He was studying it.
He closed it gently and extended his hand. Jay Hyan. The name meant nothing to me then. And that's probably why he smiled. The man without headlines. If I had Googled him that day, I would have seen everything. CEO of Kong Global Holdings. Tech acquisitions. Real estate expansions. Luxury hotel chains. Featured multiple times in Forbes as one of the youngest billionaires in Asia. But that day, he was just a man holding the wrong pronunciation. We talked for 40 minutes. About literature. About culture. About what it feels like to walk into rooms where you don't look like power, but are. When he asked to buy me coffee, I surprised myself by saying yes. Marcus used to mock my intellectual debates. Jay Hyan leaned into them. Marcus felt challenged by my ambition. Jay Hyan asked how he could support it. I didn't tell him about my ex that day, but I did tell him something vulnerable. I don't date men who are intimidated by me. He didn't hesitate. In my country, he said calmly, we call that insecurity, not masculinity. I remember blinking, because no one had ever drawn that line so clearly. The reveal. It wasn't until our 4th date that I discovered who he really was. We were walking toward his car. I expected a nice sedan. Instead, a driver stepped forward. Good evening, Mr. Kong. I froze. Mr. Kong? The car wasn't just expensive. It was discreetly armored. I turned to him slowly. Is there something you forgot to mention? He sighed softly, like this was the part he hated. I prefer being Jay Hyan, he said. Not what comes with my last name. That night, he told me everything. The board meetings. The family expectations. The security protocols. The pressure of being the eldest son in a legacy empire. But I don't want to date someone who sees the balance sheet before the person, he admitted. And I don't want to be someone's secret fantasy, I replied. Our eyes locked. We both understood something at that moment. This would either be real or not happen at all. Why I kept him secret.
So, why didn't I tell Keisha?
Why didn't I post soft launch photos? Why didn't I update my status? Because loving a powerful man as a black woman comes with narratives. Gold digger. Opportunist. Exotic trophy. I wasn't interested in defending my love story to people who had never lived mine. And Jay Hyan understood that. We protect what we value, he told me one night as we sat on his balcony, overlooking the Atlanta skyline. Not hide.
Protect.
There's a difference. He never asked me to shrink. Never once flinched when I disagreed with him. Never raised his voice when we debated. He listened. Really listened. And when I told him about Marcus, about being told I was too dominant, too opinionated, too much, he did something no man had ever done. He got quiet. Not defensive. Not competitive. Just thoughtful. Then he said softly, "A woman who knows her worth only threatens a man who doubts his own." And something inside me healed. Back to the lodge. Standing in that mountain resort lobby, staring at Marcus like the past had just knocked on my door uninvited, I felt two versions of myself colliding. The old Zara who would have tried to prove something, and the new Zara who didn't need to, because somewhere out there was a man who already chose me.
Daily.
Without conditions. I slipped my phone from my coat pocket. My fingers hovered over his name. I didn't want to appear weak. I didn't want to seem like I needed rescuing. But partnership isn't weakness. And love isn't pride. So I typed 3 words. I might need you. I didn't explain. I didn't dramatize.
Just sent it.
The message delivered instantly. And within seconds, 3 dots appeared. My heart skipped. His reply was simple. "Where are you?" I stared at Marcus laughing with the group like he hadn't fractured me once. Then I typed the location. Jay Hyan's response came 5 seconds later. "Stay where you are." I didn't know what that meant, but something in his tone felt different. Not possessive. Not angry. Protective. And for the first time since walking into that lodge, I exhaled. Because Marcus thought this weekend was about closure. He thought I was still the woman he left behind. He had no idea that the woman standing in front of him now was already loved, already valued, already chosen. And the man who chose her
was on his way.
Dinner was set like a proposal scene. Long wooden table, crystal glasses, candles flickering against exposed beams, soft violin music playing somewhere near the fireplace. It was beautiful, almost cruelly beautiful, because nothing hurts more than elegance wrapped around humiliation. I chose a seat near the middle of the table, neutral ground. Or so I thought. Marcus pulled out the chair directly across from me.
Of course he did. He didn't ask.
He just sat, like this was still his story. The performance begins. Keisha tried to lighten the mood. "To healing and new beginnings," she toasted, raising her glass. Everyone clinked. Marcus held my gaze as he drank. Calculated. Measured. Predatory almost. "You've been quiet, Zara," he said casually. "That's new." The table turned toward us. I smiled politely. I only speak when there's something worth saying. A few soft laughs trickled down the table. His jaw tightened slightly.
Score 1.
But Marcus didn't lose publicly. He recalibrated. "So," he continued, leaning back, "what's new with you? Still at that consulting firm?" The way he said that made it sound small. "I made partner," I replied calmly.
Keisha gasped.
"Zara, why didn't you tell us?" "Because success feels safer when it's quiet." Marcus blinked. "Partner," he repeated, forcing a chuckle.
"Wow.
Guess you finally figured out how to play nice." There it was. The implication. That my advancement must have required softness. Compromise. Submission. "I didn't play nice," I said evenly. "I played smart." The table shifted again. Marcus's fingers tightened around his wine glass. The dig. Dinner arrived.
Steak. Salmon.
Garlic butter dripping into porcelain plates. But I had lost my appetite. Marcus cut into his food slowly. "You know," he said casually, as if we were discussing the weather, "I used to tell Zara she didn't need to work so hard." A few girls nodded politely. He continued. "I mean, What's the point of being in a relationship if you're trying to outshine your man? The air thickened. My pulse slowed, the way it does before impact. I recognized this tactic. Rewriting history. Framing my ambition as aggression. I leaned forward slightly. And I used to tell Marcus, I replied sweetly, that partnership isn't competition. But he struggled with that concept. A fork clinked loudly against a plate. Someone coughed. Marcus laughed, but it wasn't warm. You always did think you were better than me. The words weren't loud, but they landed heavy. And suddenly, I wasn't 29 in a luxury lodge. I was 25 in my apartment, explaining to a man why being ambitious didn't make me unlovable. You don't know how to let a man lead. You emasculate me. No real man wants that. The memories echoed. For a split second, my throat tightened. And Marcus saw it. He leaned in slightly. You still single, Zara? There it was again. The measurement. The evaluation. The implication that my value depended on whether someone claimed me. I could feel everyone listening now, waiting, because society always watches what happens to this strong black woman. Does she crumble? Does she rage? Does she prove him right? I reached for my glass instead.
Took a slow sip.
Then placed it down gently. Why? I asked softly. Are you checking to see if I failed? The table went silent. Marcus's smile faltered. I just don't want you ending up alone, he said quickly. You've always been intense. Intense. That word again. Code for unapologetic. Code for not shrinking. Code for not centering a man's insecurity. And you've always been uncomfortable with that, I replied. His nostrils flared. Then he delivered the line he thought would finish me. Men don't want a woman who acts like she doesn't need them. There it was. The old weapon. The belief that independence equals unworthiness. I felt the tremor in my chest again. But this time, it didn't shake me. Because I remembered something. A balcony. Atlanta skyline. Jay Hyan's voice steady and certain. A woman who knows her worth only intimidates men who lack value. I leaned back in my chair.
Calm. Composed.
Unmoved. Good thing I'm not looking for insecure men then. A fork dropped at the end of the table. Keisha's mouth hung open. Marcus's face flushed slightly. And that's when it happened.
The shift.
The lodge doors opened. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it shifted the air. The manager, who had been pouring wine, immediately straightened. Two staff members moved quickly toward the entrance. There was an energy shift, subtle but powerful. Marcus glanced over his shoulder briefly before returning his attention to me. Anyway, he muttered, trying to regain control, I just think you'd be happier if you learned how to soften. The irony almost made me laugh. Because softness wasn't the problem. It was who I gave it to. And just as he prepared to say something else, the manager's voice carried gently through the dining hall. Mr. Kong, welcome back. Marcus paused mid-sentence. A few guests turned. My heart stopped. Not in fear. In recognition. Slow footsteps approached. Measured. Confident. Familiar. I didn't turn immediately. I didn't need to. I felt him before I saw him. And for the first time that night, I wasn't bracing for impact. I was bracing for revelation. Marcus followed everyone's gaze toward the entrance. Who's that? Someone whispered. I finally turned. And there he was. Jay Hyan Kong. Tailored black coat. Quiet authority in every step. Eyes scanning the room until they found me.
And softened.
Marcus looked confused. Then slightly irritated. Then cautious. Because power recognizes power. Even when it doesn't understand it yet. Jay Hyan walked forward calmly. Unhurried. Intentional. And stopped beside my chair. The table held its breath. Marcus straightened. Can we help you? He asked sharply. Jay Hyan didn't even glance at him. He looked at me. Only me. And extended his hand. Zara, he said gently, voice steady and warm. You forgot to mention this was a couple's retreat. The entire table froze. And Marcus? Marcus finally looked unsure. I slipped my hand into Jay Hyan's. And for the first time that night, I smiled without armor. The moment Jay Hyan said my name, the entire room changed temperature. Not colder, sharper. Like the air had just realized who walked into it. He didn't rush. Power never rushes. His black wool coat rested perfectly over broad shoulders, tailored within an inch of precision. Not flashy, not loud, just undeniable. Behind him, the resort manager stood stiff, almost reverent. "Mr. Kong," the manager said again, voice suddenly respectful in a way it hadn't been all night. "We weren't informed of your arrival." "Mr. Kong." The name echoed softly across the dining hall. Marcus blinked. "What's going on?" he muttered under his breath. Jay Hyan finally removed his gloves with unhurried grace, placing them in his coat pocket before answering the manager. "I was in the area," he said calmly. "I decided to stop by."
Stop by.
As if this entire luxury mountain resort wasn't part of his investment portfolio. As if he didn't own controlling shares in the hospitality group that operated it. As if this wasn't just another property under Kong Global Holdings. The staff subtly shifted positions. 2 servers straightened. One whispered something urgently into an earpiece. Marcus stood halfway from his chair. "Do you two know each other?" he demanded, trying to regain dominance. Jay Hyan turned his head slowly and finally looked at him. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't emotional. It was evaluative. The kind of look a CEO gives before deciding whether a proposal is worth his time. "And you are?" Jay Hyan asked politely. Marcus stiffened. "I'm Marcus." Silence. No recognition. No interest. Just acknowledgement. Then Jay Hyan's attention returned to me. That shift alone was humiliating. Because Marcus was used to being the loudest presence in any room. But real power doesn't compete. It replaces. The hand. His hand was still extended toward me. Steady. Patient. Not commanding. Inviting. Every eye at the table was on us. Keisha's mouth was slightly open. Someone at the end of the table whispered, "Isn't that?" "Yes." Another voice murmured quietly, "That's Kong." The realization began spreading like fire through dry grass. Marcus noticed it too. He looked around. He saw the staff's posture change. He saw the way other guests were subtly trying not to stare. He saw something he didn't understand. And men hate not understanding power. I stood slowly. My pulse was racing, but not from fear. From contrast. Because across from me sat the man who once said no powerful man would tolerate my personality. And beside me stood a man who built empires before breakfast. I slipped my hand into Jay Hyan's.
Warm.
Grounded.
Certain.
"You didn't tell me it was a Valentine's retreat," he said gently, but loud enough for the table to hear. "I didn't know it was," I replied, holding his gaze. Marcus's face drained slightly of color. "Girlfriend," someone whispered. Marcus snapped his head toward me.
Wait.
"What is this?" Jay Hyan answered smoothly. "She's my girlfriend." Not loud. Not possessive. Just factual. The kind of tone that doesn't expect to be questioned. "The penthouse." The manager stepped forward again, almost nervously. "Mr. Kong, shall we prepare the penthouse suite?" Penthouse. The word hit the table like a dropped glass. Keisha's eyes widened. Marcus looked physically ill. "You're staying here?" Marcus asked, disbelief cracking his voice. Jay Hyan adjusted his cuff slightly. "I own a percentage of the property," he said casually. "I visit occasionally." Occasionally. Like ownership was incidental. Marcus swallowed. His earlier confidence was evaporating in real time. This was the same man who had once told me, "No high-value man wants a woman who argues like you." And now he was sitting across from one. The collapse. Marcus tried one last angle. He leaned back and forced a laugh. "Oh, I get it," he said. "So this is what we're doing now? Billionaire boyfriend." There was an edge to it. An accusation. A reach for control. Jay Hyan didn't react.
He simply looked at me.
Not for permission. For alignment. And I realized something in that moment. Marcus always needed to feel above me. Jay Hyan simply stood beside me. "Is there a problem?" Jay Hyan asked calmly. Marcus opened his mouth.
Closed it.
Looked around. No one was on his side.
No one was laughing now.
Because money impresses people. But composure? Composure commands them. I just didn't know Zara moved on that fast, Marcus muttered. I stepped forward slightly. I didn't move fast, I replied. I moved forward. That one landed. Hard. The silent apology. Keisha touched my arm gently. Zara. I didn't know, she whispered. I know, I replied. But my attention stayed on Marcus. Because this wasn't revenge. It was revelation. Marcus looked smaller now. Not physically. Energetically. Like the narrative he built in his head was collapsing. The strong woman he couldn't handle? Handled. Chosen. Protected.
Publicly.
And Jay Hyan did something subtle but powerful. He placed his hand at the small of my back. Not possessive. Anchoring. Come, he said softly to me. You've had enough for one evening. Not commanding. Concerned. Marcus scoffed, but it sounded hollow. So what? You're just going to run off to the penthouse. I turned to him one last time. No, I said evenly. I'm going where I'm respected. And that was the difference.
The walk.
As we walked away from the table together, the dining hall remained silent. The staff opened a private elevator discreetly. The doors slid open. I stepped inside. Jay Hyan followed. The doors closed. And for the first time since arriving, I exhaled fully. Not because Marcus lost, but because I didn't. Jay Hyan looked down at me gently. You looked ready to handle him, he said. I was. Then why call me? I held his gaze. Because strength doesn't mean I fight alone anymore. Something softened in his expression. And as the elevator rose toward the penthouse, downstairs, at a camelot table meant for romance, Marcus Reed finally understood something he never did while dating me. He didn't lose me to a billionaire. He lost me to a man who wasn't threatened by my power. The penthouse elevator doors opened to silence. Not awkward silence. Sacred silence. Soft golden lighting spilled across marble floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked snow-covered mountains glowing under moonlight. A fireplace already burned, prepared within minutes of Jay Hyan's arrival. Power moves quietly. Jay Hyan stepped inside first, then turned to face me. You don't have to pretend you're unaffected, he said gently. I hadn't realized my jaw was clenched. I'm not pretending, I replied. I just refused to be shaken by someone who couldn't value me. He studied my face, not searching for weakness. Searching for truth. That man hurt you. It wasn't a question. I exhaled slowly. He hurt the version of me that still thought love meant proving something. Jay Hyan nodded once, thoughtfully. In business, he said calmly, we call that a bad investment. I laughed despite myself. And that laugh, light, free, felt like a small victory. But downstairs? The story wasn't finished. Back at the table, Marcus hadn't moved. He sat staring at his wine glass long after we left. The room buzzed in whispers. That's Kong, right? The Kong. I saw him in a business article last month. Someone pulled up an interview clip. Someone else mentioned Forbes. Marcus heard it all. Every whisper was a mirror reflecting what he once said to me. No high-value man wants a woman like you. He pushed back his chair abruptly. This is ridiculous, he muttered. Keisha crossed her arms. No. What's ridiculous is you trying to humiliate her tonight. He glared at her. I wasn't humiliating her. You were measuring her, she shot back. And you didn't like the result. Marcus scoffed. She just wants to show off. But the truth had begun to itch. Because Jay Hyan hadn't shown off. He hadn't announced net worth. He hadn't flaunted authority. He simply walked in, and the world rearranged itself. That's not showing off. That's influence. The knock. A soft knock echoed at the penthouse door. Jay Hyan raised a brow. I didn't request anything. I walked toward the door before he could stop me. When I opened it, Marcus stood there. Alone. No smirk. No swagger. Just something close to disbelief. I need to talk to you, he said. Jay Hyan approached calmly, but didn't intervene. He simply stood at my side. Equal. Present. Solid. What is it, Marcus? I asked. Marcus looked past me briefly, taking in the penthouse interior, the private dining setup, the champagne chilling in silver, the view that screamed exclusivity. His pride flickered. "So, this is what we're doing now?" he asked. "You dating billionaires?" Jay Hyan's voice remained steady. "She is dating a man who respects her." Marcus ignored him. He looked at me like he was searching for the girl he left. "You're just trying to prove something," he said. That sentence almost made me smile. Because that used to be me. Always trying to prove I was lovable, worthy, enough.
But tonight?
I felt different. "I'm not proving anything," I said quietly. "I'm experiencing what you told me didn't exist." He blinked.
What?
"A man who isn't intimidated by me." Silence. Snow drifted softly outside the windows. Marcus's voice dropped. "You were different with me." "No," I corrected. "I was shrinking with you." That hit
Hard.
because he knew it was true. I used to soften my voice when he got defensive. Celebrate him louder than myself. Downplay achievements so he wouldn't feel small. And even then, it wasn't enough. Marcus swallowed. "You made me feel unnecessary." Jay Hyan tilted his head slightly, analytical. "A partner is not meant to feel necessary," he said calmly. "He is meant to feel chosen." Marcus turned sharply toward him. "Easy for you to say." Jay Hyan didn't flinch. "Yes," he replied evenly. "It is." That confidence, effortless, unthreatened, was the final blow. The realization. Marcus looked at me again.
Not angry now. Confused.
Almost wounded. "You really love him?" he asked. The question wasn't about jealousy.
It was about ego.
I looked at Jay Hyan, at the steadiness in his eyes, at the way he didn't grip me like possession, at the way he let me speak for myself. "Yes," I said. Marcus's shoulders fell slightly, because in that moment, he understood something he couldn't compete with. It wasn't money. It wasn't status. It was security. Emotional security. The thing he never had. The thing he never gave. "You changed," he muttered. I shook my head gently.
No.
I healed. And healing is dangerous to people who benefited from your brokenness. The final blow. Marcus hesitated at the doorway. Then he said something softer. "I thought no one else would deal with you." There it was. The quiet confession. He didn't think I'd be loved. He thought I'd come back. That I'd eventually settle. That I'd miss him enough to accept crumbs. I stepped closer, not angrily. Just clearly. "You are right about one thing," I said. He looked up quickly. "I am intense."
Pause.
And now I'm loved correctly. The silence that followed was heavier than shouting. Marcus nodded once, then turned, and walked away. No dramatic exit. No last insult. Just a man confronting the fact that he underestimated the woman he let go. Inside the penthouse. The door closed softly. I didn't move for a moment. Jay Hyan gently touched my chin. "You didn't need me to defeat him," he said. "I know," I replied. "Then why am I here?" I smiled slowly. "Because I don't fight battles alone anymore." His hand slid into mine. "Good," he said softly. "Because I don't plan on leaving." Outside, Valentine's fireworks began lighting the sky below.
Red.
Gold.
Silver.
But up here, the real spectacle wasn't wealth. It wasn't status. It was clarity. Marcus didn't lose me because of a billionaire. He lost me because he mistook strength for threat. And someone else recognized it as value. Morning came slowly. Soft mountain light filtered through the penthouse windows, turning the snow outside into diamonds. I woke up wrapped in quiet. Not chaos. Not tension. Quiet. For years, mornings after conflict felt heavy. With Marcus, silence was punishment. With Jay Hyan, silence was peace. He was already awake, seated near the window, reading something on his tablet.
Calm.
Focused. Grounded. When he noticed me stirring, his expression softened. "Good morning," he said gently. Not dramatic. Not possessive. Just present. That alone felt different. The text. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. 3 messages from Keisha. "Are you coming to breakfast?" Everyone's talking about last night. Marcus looks sick. I stared at the last message longer than I expected.
Sick.
Not angry. Not defensive.
Sick.
Because humiliation hits the stomach before it hits the ego. Jay Hyan watched my expression carefully. Do you need to go down? He asked. It wasn't control. It was choice. And that difference mattered. Yes, I replied. But not to fight. He nodded once. I'll join you. Breakfast, the aftermath. The dining hall felt different in daylight. Less romantic. More revealing. Conversations quieted when we entered. Not dramatically, but noticeably. And this time I didn't feel exposed. I felt centered. Marcus sat at the far end of the table, sunglasses on despite being indoors. That told me everything. You don't hide your eyes unless they betray you. Keisha stood quickly when she saw us. Zara, can we talk? I glanced at Jay Hyan. He squeezed my hand lightly. I'll get coffee, he said, giving us space. Again, not inserting himself. Not hovering. Secure men don't monitor. They trust. The friend who miscalculated. Keisha pulled me aside near the windows. I messed up, she admitted immediately. That surprised me. No excuses. No justification. I thought if you two saw each other again, maybe you'd realize what you lost, she continued. What did you think I lost? I asked calmly. She hesitated. I don't know history? Comfort? Familiarity? I shook my head slightly. I lost a man who couldn't celebrate me, I said. That's not loss. Her eyes welled slightly. I just didn't think you'd move on like that. There it was. The subtle assumption that strong women stay single longer, that healing takes forever, that we circle back to old love eventually. I didn't move on fast, I told her quietly. I moved on correctly. That sentence lingered between us. And for the first time I realized something. Keisha wasn't malicious. She was projecting, because she had gone back to her ex twice. Sometimes people try to recreate their own unfinished stories through you. I forgive you, I said gently. Her shoulders relaxed. But don't ever invite someone into my life without asking me again. She nodded quickly. Never. The jealousy finally speaks. Marcus stood as we returned to the table. He removed his sunglasses. His eyes were tired, red at the edges. He looked less like a villain now, more like a man confronting his ego. Can I speak to you? He asked. Jay Hyan, now seated beside me with his coffee, looked up briefly. Not territorial, just observant. I nodded. Marcus and I stepped a few feet away, though not completely out of view. Public, but private enough. He didn't ease into it this time. I was jealous, he said flatly. No smirk. No sarcasm. Just truth. I blinked. Of him? I asked. Of you, he corrected. That hit differently. He ran a hand through his hair. You never needed me. And that scared me. There it was. The root. Not my ambition. Not my voice. Not my intensity. My independence. I wanted to feel indispensable, he admitted. And you made me feel optional. I studied him for a moment. I chose you every day, I said calmly. You just didn't believe that was enough. Because some men equate love with control. If she can survive without you, they fear she'll leave. Marcus swallowed. I thought you'd come back eventually, he admitted. I wasn't surprised. You underestimated me. He nodded slowly. Yeah. Snow fell softly outside again. The same setting. Different energy. I don't hate you, he said quietly. I just didn't know how to love someone like you. And that was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. You don't need to know how to love someone like me, I replied gently. Just don't try to break her, because you can't. Silence. Then he gave a small nod. Not defeated. Just aware. I hope he's worth it, Marcus said, glancing briefly at Jay Hyan. I followed his gaze. Jay Hyan sat relaxed, scrolling calmly, occasionally glancing up, not to monitor, but to check. He is, I said. And this time, I meant it without defense. The return. When I walked back toward the table, Jay Hyan stood slightly. Not because he had to, but because he chose to. Everything resolved? He asked softly. Yes, I replied. Marcus gathered his things shortly after. No dramatic exit. No scene. Just a man who finally understood that losing me wasn't about wealth. It was about worth. As he passed our table, he paused briefly. Take care of her, he said to Jay Hyan. Jay Hyan met his eyes steadily. I will. Two different energies. One insecure. One anchored. Marcus left the lodge quietly. And something inside me felt lighter. Not because he suffered, but because he understood. Closure isn't loud. It's clear. The soft realization. After breakfast, Jay Hyan and I stepped outside onto the snowy terrace. You handled that with grace, he said. I used to think I needed to win arguments, I replied. And now I just need peace. He smiled faintly. In my culture, he said thoughtfully, strength is not loud. It is controlled. I looked at him. And insecurity? He met my eyes. It is always loud. We both glanced toward the road, where Marcus's car had disappeared, then back at each other. No tension. No unfinished business. Just clarity. And as Jay Hyan wrapped his coat around my shoulders again, I realized something profound. I didn't need a billionaire to prove my value. But I did need a man secure enough not to compete with it. And that difference changed everything. The lodge was quieter that night, not because people had left, but because something had settled. Storms don't last forever. Sometimes they clear the air. Snow fell again just after sunset, soft and steady, coating the mountains in silver. Inside the penthouse, candles flickered near the fireplace. A private dinner had been prepared, but neither of us had touched it yet. I stood by the window, watching tiny white flakes melt against the glass. For years, I said softly, I thought love had to feel dramatic. Jay Hyan leaned against the fireplace, listening. With Marcus, it was always intense, always emotional. High highs, low lows. He walked toward me slowly. And now, he asked. I turned to face him. Now it feels steady. He smiled faintly. In my experience, he said, steady lasts longer than intense. There was no ego in his voice. No triumph. Just truth. The balcony. He opened the balcony doors and cold air rushed in, crisp and alive. Come, he said gently. Outside, the mountains stretched endlessly. Snow glowed under moonlight. The world felt untouched. He draped his coat over my shoulders again. I looked up at him. You keep doing that. Doing what? Making sure I'm warm. His eyes softened. I don't want you fighting cold things alone anymore. That sentence nearly broke me, because I had fought so many cold things alone. Expectations. Stereotypes. Insecurity projected onto me. Love that asked me to shrink. For years I told myself, you're strong. You don't need anyone. You can handle it. But strength without softness is survival, not living. The confession. Snow caught in his hair as he stepped closer. I didn't come last night to show off, he said quietly. I know. I came because your message felt different. I swallowed. What did it feel like? Like you were choosing not to carry something alone. He reached up and gently brushed snowflakes from my curls. In business, he continued softly, control matters. But in relationships, trust matters more. My chest tightened. Are you saying you trust me? I asked. He didn't hesitate. Yes. No long speech. No dramatic buildup. Just certainty. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. Marcus wanted to be needed. Jay Hyan wanted to be chosen. There's a difference. Needing someone feels like dependency. Choosing someone feels like power. The fireworks. Suddenly, the sky lit up. Red exploded over the mountains. Then gold. Then silver. Valentine's fireworks from the town below. The reflections danced across his face. I used to hate this holiday, I admitted.
Why?
It felt like a reminder of what I didn't have. He studied me carefully. And now, I looked at the fireworks bursting across the night sky. Now it feels like confirmation of what I deserve. The wind lifted slightly. He stepped closer until there was barely space between us. You deserve to be with someone who is not threatened by your strength, he said softly. You deserve someone who sees your ambition as an asset, not competition. You deserve someone who does not ask you to shrink. My breath caught. No one had ever listed my worth like that before. He wasn't praising me to flatter me.
He was acknowledging me.
And then he said the one thing that settled everything. I don't want to lead you, he whispered. I want to walk beside you. The simplicity of it unraveled something deep inside me. Because I didn't need a man ahead of me. And I didn't need to be ahead of him. I just needed alignment. The fireworks reflected in his eyes as he cupped my face gently.
Slowly.
Intentionally. No rush. No urgency. Just presence. I love you, Zara, he said. Not dramatic. Not impulsive. Measured.
Certain.
And somehow that made it heavier. More real. For a second, fear flickered through me. Because love means vulnerability. Means allowing someone to matter. But healing had already prepared me for this. I love you too, I replied. Not because he saved me. Not because he's a billionaire. But because he met me where I stand and didn't ask me to move. He leaned down and kissed me. Soft at first. Snow melting against our skin. Fireworks exploding behind us. And in that moment, the world didn't feel loud. It felt still. Secure. Chosen. The final realization. Down the mountain somewhere, Marcus was likely replaying the weekend in his head. Trying to understand how the woman he thought would circle back didn't. But this wasn't about him anymore. This was about me. About the girl who once questioned if being ambitious made her unlovable. About the woman who almost believed she had to tone herself down to keep a man. And about the moment she realized. The right man doesn't compete with your light. He stands comfortably in it. As the last firework faded, Jay Hyan rested his forehead against mine. Next Valentine's, he said quietly. No surprises. I laughed softly.
Deal.
And as snow continued to fall around us, I understood something deeply. I didn't win because my ex was humbled. I won because I healed. Because I chose differently. Because I stopped confusing intensity with intimacy. The mountains stood tall. The sky cleared. And for the first time on Valentine's Day, I wasn't surviving it. I was living it. And somewhere between heartbreak and healing, love found me again.